It is Thursday. It is June 9th, 2011, and I love the number 9 because I went to the wrong screen. That's right. This is Day 9 Daily number 313, and I hit Alt-2, which sends me here when I meant to hit Alt-1 to bring you right to my face, which, as you'll know, I got a special rhinoceros cone on my head. It's going to try to frizz out, but I'm going to do my best to rhinosify it throughout the cast. I am in a fantastic mood today, not just because it's Thursday, the second best day of the week, after Monday, but also because we're going to be taking a look at Root Slush. Who is this guy? He is a man from Canada, in particular a location where they speak French, so he's basically European. Slush is this extremely good Zerg player from Team Root Gaming who does not really get a lot of cred, despite always performing very well at MLGs. But I think that this last MLG is the one where he really sort of had this moment where people went, I like that guy. Look at... Hey. Salut. Qu'est-ce que fuck? That's how you say what the fuck in French. Qu'est-ce que fuck? That's what people said. What is this 5th place result? What is this man doing above Moon, above July, above everyone I've ever heard of ever? Well, it's because he's really good, and we're going to take a look at why today. Before we go into that, I need to make some usual announcements. Go to DreamHack, because I'm going to be there from the 18th to the 21st of June. Where is it? It's located in Jönköping, Sweden. I'll be doing their casting for their StarCraft 2 tournament, which has tons of huge names from all over Europe, America, and Korea. It's, like, seriously absurd. And they're all going to be there live. Yes. Some of the most serious swallowing you've ever seen. You didn't hear me say that. Let's shut up. Let me start. Look, here we go. We're going to do it. Whew! Another important announcement to make. Oh yeah, because I'm going to Sweden, I'm going to be out of town that whole time, so what's going to happen while I'm gone is not the Day 9 Daily. But don't worry, we're going to be doing a replacement set of videos during that time. I'm going to be pre-recording a lot, and those will be getting uploaded. Those will be the following. The Steal This Build series. It worked on the second time. In the Steal This Build series, what we're going to do is look at a variety of really, really good players from MLG and watch them do their extremely good builds, and we're going to break them down so that way you can do them too. They're going to be more compacted dailies, but we're going to do things like look at Slush's Zerg vs. Zerg builds, where he does some crazy Zerglian Fester stuff. We're going to look at MMA is really aggressive Terran vs. Zerg style. We're going to be taking a look at some of Tyler's PvPs. We're going to be looking at a lot of build orders by matchup in depth, and they're going to be nice little nuggets of learning. So definitely look for those. I'll even be changing the post up there on the top where it has the Justin TV title. Or if you're watching on archives, go to day9.tv and watch it live. Yes. So without any further ado, let's talk about Slush and why you love him. Why I love him. So, Zerg's hard, right? Zerg stinks. It's just, it's a grody race to play. And it all comes down to the larva. Let's talk a little bit about why it's hard, and I hope that what I'm going to say relates to you, either as an observer, but more importantly, as a player. This is going to be a little bit more of an in-depth, a little bit more of a drilling deep knowledge daily. So, just to throw that out there. Dear observers, I love you, but players, this one's for you. This is why Zerg stinks in the eyes of many people, why it's rough to play. It all is about larva. At any point in time, you have to make the decision with a larva, do I turn you into a drone or do I turn you into a unit? Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to break larva into 3 basic categories of what they can be. One of them is a drone. So I'm going to now be taking units. I'm going to be breaking those units into 2 categories. One of them, I'm going to be calling power units, and another, I'm going to be calling massing units. So, when I say a power unit, it is a unit that you are just trying to get some of in order to buy yourself more time, or in order to let you build a whole bunch more drones. In general, power units are units that are cheap on larva. I'll come back to that in a moment. And massing units are units that you have really, really, really high numbers of, that once you have a really good economy, you're going to be dumping a lot into those. So we have workers, we have massing units, and then we have power units. So I'm going to come to the concept of being expensive on larva. Because there's actually 4 resources of Zerg: minerals, gas, food, and larva. Something is expensive on larva if you need a lot of larva to make, or excuse me, a lot of larva to spend a lot of money. Let me give the extreme examples. Zerglings are really expensive on larva. Because if I said, give me 5,000 resources worth of Zerglings, you'd have to use a lot of eggs to do that. I think you'd need like, come on, basic math skills. Is that like 100 eggs? Is that accurate? 100 eggs? Because 50 per egg, and 50 times 100 is oftentimes 5,000. Good. This is going great. You need 100 eggs to do that. An Ultralisk is really cheap on larva. If I said give me 5,000 resources worth of Ultralisks, you'd need not that many at all. So, what this means, the reason there's this notion of expensive on larva, is that there's a lot of times in the game where you could say something like, I'm going to defend this attack with either 20 Zerglings or 5 roaches. You'll notice 5 roaches takes 5 larvae. 20 Zerglings takes 10 larvae. In one of these circumstances, we are not being very larva efficient. So the reason I bring this up is I want to come back to this expensive, this power unit versus massing unit. Throughout the game, anytime you want to be making drones, there should be some power units that's letting you do this. What kind of sucks is that Blizzard introduced queens, so they're a great power unit early on. You just make some queens, and queens are literally 0 larva units. But still, this ends up working out basically the same way. How much is a spine crawler? It costs 1 larva to do. You see me like shaking it at you like you did a very bad thing, thinking otherwise. So, I want you to have this idea that, yeah, there's these power units that let us build all this really, really great stuff. Like, you'll see players get 4 or 5 roaches early on, all drones. Then get a whole bunch of Mutalisks early on, and then all drones. Maybe get some Infestors and keep making drones. The reason that Zerg ends up being hard is that often it can be very difficult when to know to begin making your mass units. Okay? A lot of people know you need a lot of drones. A lot of people can say things like, yeah, I need 15 Mutalisks, and when I have those, he's distracted, and I'll be making a lot of drones. But the hard part is, when do I start making a lot of Zerglings? When do I get like a burst of Zerglings and go back to drone production? That's what's rough about playing Zerg. Please tell me if that is the case. Let me give some examples of where this comes in the way. Where, for instance, a player is worried that he's going to get attacked. Like, let's say you're worried you're going to get attacked. So what do? You build, like, 20 Zerglings really fast. But then he didn't attack. Oh, so now I got to make some drones. But all of a sudden my build is totally thrown off because now I'm broke. And all this associated misery. And as a matter of fact, the one reason most Zergs tend to get really, really thrown off in games is that they do make massing units too early. They're not either building power units to allow them to step into more drones, or they are just thinking that now is the good time to make these massing units. And that is going to be a big topic of today. We're going to be looking at these games from Slush. And what we're going to see Slush do is he's going to be playing against Phoenix, an extremely, extremely aggressive player. And what we're going to see come out of Slush is this remarkable ability for him to not only resist this aggression, but do so in a way where he's not really doing that much larva-expensive defense. He's not making 60 Zerglings to hold off an early attack, and as a result, he's not really getting very, very thrown off. And then as the game goes on, there's going to be more forms of pressure that end up getting thrown at Slush. And we're also going to examine this whole idea of, if someone's being really, really aggressive at you, don't overreact, don't freak out, and everything's going to be okay. We're going to see in this game the way he holds it off, and his response and his follow-ups, and we're going to see, oh my goodness, it doesn't end up feeling so scary. So let's go ahead and bounce into game one. I have another thing I want to talk, another little lecture thing, but God, I've been talking a lot, and that's just like the worst thing in the whole wide world. Ugh, I don't want anyone to experience that anymore. Going into Shattered Temple. Alright, cool. For any of you who want these games, just go look up MLG Columbus Rep Pack. And there you shall find them. Awesome. I'm actually going to come back here because for some reason I'm having a really, really hard time hearing what's going on. Oh! My headphones aren't plugged in. Oh, never mind. Alright, excellent. Alright, coming back to the game. Yeah. Alright, yeah, I can hear all sorts of things now. This is great. I also had my sound disabled, but I still should have been hearing myself. Pfft, wouldn't be a Day 9 Daily without it. So we have Slush spawning here at the right. For any of you who want this, go to MLG Columbus Rep Pack in Google, and you will find it. A couple little things from Phoenix that we're going to see right off the bat. We're going to see him throw down this supply depot on 9. This is actually a supply depot on 9. If you don't believe me, don't worry. I'm going to hit this B button. Look at that. He's on 9 food. Bam. Phoenix, we've seen him go 9 depot, 10 barracks. It's a very, very, very aggressive variant of an early bunker pressure. But what we're going to see come out of our good friend Phoenix is that he won't actually be building it on 10. He'll be building it on 11, but it's still very, very, very early. I don't like 9 depot, 11 racks. I prefer 10 depot, 11 racks, but it's just me. So we're going to see Slush open up with the standard of all standards, getting himself a very, very fast hatchery. So Slush is also going to continue to bounce around here. It's important to know what you're looking for. We see that he's getting this refinery early on. Always want to be looking for the refineries early on. The biggest indicator of what you really need to be worried about is your little Zergy piece. There is Phoenix coming on in, and we're seeing a lot of drones get made. And this is a little bit of a subtle point, but it's still very important. We're going to see the hatch get made, and often players will build another drone and then build a pool. Slush doesn't. He goes 15 hatch, 14 pool. I personally think it's reasonable to always build that extra drone, unless you're really, really freaking out about stuff. I mean, I think you can actually always get away with it, but Slush is going to be doing a little bit more on the safe side. Building a lot of drones, then we're going to see an Overlord get built on 17. All is as it should be. Now, there's a couple of little subtle touches that we're going to see come out of Slush. Notice that Slush has this, has a drone, and it's starting to move forward, right? It's starting to move out to the front to maybe kill anything off that starts building. But I want you to keep in mind that up until this point in the game, Slush has not really sent any drones early on at all. Slush has essentially been, like, keeping all his drones to himself. And that's a really important subtlety that comes up by this Overlord placement. A lot of times people will get so worried about the bunker rush that what they're going to do is just put a whole bunch of drones there way too early. They're going to over-anticipate the bunker rush. Maybe they see two SCVs get pulled off mining and get sent towards their base, and they're just like, ugh, freaking out, panicking. And it's really important not to do that, right? It's really, really, really important to have some method of dealing with that doesn't overcommit you in any fashion. So as we come back here, we're seeing he's going to have just one drone. It's sent out quite late. One drone that is not mining for a while is actually a big pain in the ass. It actually eats into your ability to do much of anything quite substantially. So we're going to see now we see the drones getting pulled off quite late, quite late. You'll see a lot of Terran players build the first bunker here and then build like the second one here and then go for a third one here if they want to be really meticulous. But again, this one Overlord is placed very far out, so these drones can wait a really long time to pop out. I know my forces are under attack. Oops, I hit the back button. I meant to hit the build button. But notice that this bunker actually takes 40 seconds of build time. Zerglings have already been started in this game, so we can even calculate that this is actually going to be absolutely fine. So I'm actually going to go back to the everyone cam. This is a moment in time where it's really important to pull a lot of drones off. You need to take like this many drones and put them back to mine. It's very tempting to continue to juke back and forth with these drones, but these drones should only be off mining if there's a bunker going down. They should only be off mining if there is a big investment that Terran's throwing down that I can kill. In other words, if I kill like 300 minerals worth of Terran units, it makes up for the fact that there's maybe 250 minerals that I didn't mine as Zerg. But if there's no bunker building, then I might kill like 50 minerals worth of units, maybe 100 minerals worth of units, like a Marine and an SCV, but then all these other drones aren't mining for 250 minerals worth of time. So one of the most important skills of a bunker rush that we're going to see is that we're going to see Slush adamantly be sending drones back to go mine minerals, right? Aggressively trying to go back to minerals as fast as he can. And this is actually an important one step up, right? One step forward. You're not thinking of a bunker rush as, holy shit, how do I stay alive? You're thinking, I'm gonna stay alive to this bunker rush. How early can I send my drones back? And what are the units that we don't want to make a lot of? Mass units. These are massing units that are good in huge, gigantic fights where we're just sending stuff directly at his face. These are good in fights that happen in the middle of the map. They are not good for swooping in and doing damage in the way Mutalisks are. They're not cheap on Larva. So we actually saw Slush in the midst of that bunker rush go back to making drones. He actually only made 4 Zerglings. How many of you would have made 8 Zerglings there? I bet it's a lot, right? You see a Marine at your ramp. Ah! 5S Z Z Z Z Z Z Z rally all the Zerglings. Well, you've just spent 8 Zerglings. That's 4 larvae. That's a lot. You don't want to be doing that very early on. You're starting to see that we're actually at 4 minutes and 45 seconds, and we've already talked a lot, right? Quite a bit. Coming back into the daily. That's because these little decisions you're going to see crop up all the time as Zerg. All the freaking time as Zerg. Slush did end up losing an Overlord, so he's just going to go ahead and not vomit larva early, just begin spreading creep. Nothing but drones coming out. And because Phoenix is annoyingly aggro, we're going to see this Hellion pop down. Slush being very responsible about moving this up. But notice how we're going to see, yet again, here comes harassment from Slush. All sorts of scary business. More drones. The only thing Slush really does is build an extra queen. A expensive on minerals, but very cheap on larva. In fact, costs 0 larva. Oh! Getting some gas. Getting maybe a second geyser. Getting an Evo chamber. Now, this is one of these moments where it's important that you have good reads on your opponent. And I don't mean like amazing reads. A lot of times when I talk about having a read on your opponent, I talk about it with a lot of timings. I'm like, oh, it's 7 minutes and 50 seconds. No way he can have that by 7 minutes and 50 seconds. That's a little bit more of a subtle read that comes after a lot of games of research. But do blunt reading with Zerg and make sure you do it like regularly. If you don't, you'll actually die a lot. For Terran and Protoss, it's actually kind of easy. Like in Terran vs Zerg, I can just say, I'm making a lot of Marines, I'm making a lot of tanks, and I'm making medevacs. If you go Mutalisks, I kind of need to move my Marines. If you're going a lot of Roaches, I got to make sure I siege my tanks up. But I'm not actually building anything that different. With Zerg, you're building all sorts of different stuff. And you have to do just obvious reads. What's the obvious thing? He brought a Hellion to the front of my base. He must probably be going Banshee. Or be going Mech. He's not going for a lot of Marines. Because that's a really fast Hellion. I mean, you see a Hellion, you can conclude that there's tech going on. Clearly. So we're going to see the usual sort of response. Ah, wrong button. There we go. We're going to see the usual sort of response from our Zerg player. Let me open up the right tabs, right? More drones, nothing but drones. Also an evolution chamber going down. Also getting Zergling speed going down. We've spent almost nothing on Zerglings. But the important thing is that we're regularly moving queens around. We get these second queens, trying to clear this space off. And we're just going to see some real phenomenal stuff come out of Slush. So yeah, look, there he's getting a Spore Crawler. We're seeing another Spore Crawler go down, and there's a layer. Still all drones, and I mean, now Slush has the fortunate moment where he walks in here and sees the starport going on, but before then, it was just all him saying, oh, saw a Hellion. Guess I better defend. Phoenix being annoying. Being really aggressive and annoying. Slush still adding on Dem's larva. And then doing smart things. Yes, I'm going to be getting my Spore Crawler for defense, but then I want to make sure that I get my Evolution Chamber. Or getting upgrades. Again, you want to think of all the things that will contribute to your big army later on. Do the 0 larva stuff early. Don't do the big larva stuff early. Don't be like, I'm going to get a lot of Zerglings because I want to have a Zergling Muta army. Get the drones up in as large a quantity as possible and begin getting these upgrades early. And in particular, the reason I like this upgrade so much is largely the fact that we're building these Spore Crawlers anyways. You always want to take any defensive move that you make and turn it into an offensive move as well. So Phoenix just being really, really vicious, but the Queen's being very active. Even this stuff, like, look at this. Transfuses, try to keep it alive, has a creep spread in his own base. I mean, this is just amazing stuff. And I want to note one thing again. We've seen only drones get built, right? It might seem like we're saying, build only drones. That might seem like what I'm trying to conclude. I was like, oh my gosh, we really want to get as many drones as possible. Sure, that's true. And the key is not just build them. We really need to be careful to, again, make sure that we're doing this constant reading. We see a Hellion. Oh, okay. He must be going for some sort of tech. Okay, we see the Banshee tech. He's either expanding really fast now, or he's building up a bunch of dudes. Well, I see an expansion, so I guess there's no attack coming right now. You're starting to see that, yeah, the fact that we've seen the expansion, and the fact that we have seen this Banshee is very, very conclusive for us. And if you're saying, well, what happens in other circumstances? Don't worry, we're actually going to watch 2 more relatively fast games. Great. Just had to check on time. We're doing so good on it. So what we're going to end up seeing from our good friend Slush, who's up against Phoenix. Oh, how scary. He's been suffering aggression, but what he's done, low on larva, he built a spine crawler. Low on larva, he built a queen. Spent all the rest of his larva on drones. And then had to build an evolution chamber. Built that +1 upgrade. If he built this evolution chamber and didn't use it, I would call that much weaker. And now we're seeing a spire go down somewhere on the map. Ah! I found him! So there's a spire going down. And this is one of these moments in time where we have to back up because, oh my goody goodness, we see Zerglings getting made for the first time since the very start of the game with that bunker rush. There the Zerglings are coming down. Now this is actually a moment in time that we need to do a lot of consideration of. This is something I'm actually probably going to spend the most time of that I've ever spent my time on anything in my whole life. So, look, let me stop being a goof, right? What did I say was the hard part about playing Zerg? It was about knowing when to make these mass units, right? Knowing when to make things like lots of Zerglings. Making a lot of Mutalisks is easy. It's actually a very, very easy skill to have. Once your Spire is done, you make as many Mutalisks as you can and make drones in the meantime. It's very, very straightforward. But all of a sudden, some Zerglings are getting made. That's a hard unit to do right with Zerg. That's the struggle part as Zerg. So we really want to take some time to examine why this is cropping up. So let's go ahead and bounce back into the game. So if we just go to the Slush Cam, the first question I have for him is what could Slush possibly be seeing that would trigger him to do this? Doesn't look like we actually see anything. Was there a scout that happened a little while ago? I'm actually going to zoom through this part of the game. This is very important to do. Did he see anything? No. Okay. Now, is there anything obvious that he could use these Zerglings for? Well, actually, he could kill off these destructible rocks and take himself another expansion. Or he could be taking down these destructible rocks to be taking this bottom right expansion. So those actually seem like some pretty compelling arguments. There's some important math to note. 6 Zerglings kill destructible rocks in 2 minutes of game time. So if you have 12 Zerglings, you can kill them off in a minute. And if you've been really perceptive when you're playing your own Zerg, you'll note that when you're teching to a Spire, right around the time your Spire's about to hatch, or a little while after it's hatched, you have enough to take a third base. Mutalisks are one of the most common triggers for a third base. My Mutalisks are popping out, let me take a third. So the fact that he's getting these Zerglings to begin to accommodate that seems really reasonable. One thing that I always want to make sure that I'm doing, that I always want to make certain that I do, is I want to come back to the game and I want to say, what is Phoenix doing? You'll notice that I asked all the questions about these Zerglings based purely on what was going on in our good friend Slush's base. Just examining around, seeing if there was some trigger, seeing if he saw a huge amount of Marines coming and was making these Zerglings in some sort of defensive panic, or maybe he sees speed Hellions and needs the speedy Zerglings to track them down now that his spine crawler is forward. Something like that. I did all that first, but now I'm going to come back and I'm going to look at exactly what's going on in Camp Phoenix. And it looks like Phoenix does have some units coming out, and in particular, we see that there is a stim moving out. And I might do something. This is a very important thing to do. I might say something to myself like, 10 minutes. I'm going to watch 4 other Terran versus Zergs. Does an attack normally come at 10 minutes? There was a period of time when a lot of Protosses would do a very specific kind of 5-gate push, and it happened at about 9 minutes. Very, very typical. They'd leave their base at around 8 minutes and 30 seconds, and around 9 minutes, that push would come. Now, if at any point in time I'm scouting a Protoss and I don't quite know if he's doing the 5-gate or not, I always have to worry about that potential push that could be coming at 9 minutes. That's exactly what we're seeing here, right? Or it's exactly what we could be seeing here. This is just a pretty typical time to end up seeing a general push as Terran. And a lot of times what I like to do is I like to pull back and I like to just re-watch through what's going on in the Terran space, just to sort of examine through. And also one thing I want to note, Phoenix is downing a lot of money to do all this aggression. Man, that's a really fast stim, right? Doesn't even have any barracks, extra barracks done. He's still going for stim. He actually has 5 Marines, and I think 4 of them were out in the field. Where are the other 4? Oh yeah, they were just up here. Yeah, not a lot of Marines, and getting stim. Yeah, this is actually what most Terrans are doing with their really fast pushes, so this is actually a very, very reasonable time for Slush to begin getting himself a bunch of Zerglings. So again, to zoom it right back to where we were before, slowing it back down again. Alright, cool. Yeah, we see the Zerglings popping out right around the 9-minute and 30-second mark, so that way we can begin defending for this push that generally ends up coming out. Now, it's so important that you think about the following little mix of things. We're going to see Slush begin to do some real wonderful junk with his Mutalisks. And in the next 2 games, again, or in the next 1 game, we're going to see Slush again do the same wonderful junk with his Mutalisks. You'll always hear me say that there should be guiding principles to your builds. We'll actually look at this in the Steal Your Build week. Guiding principles are things that I like to call just guiding principles because they're always somewhere where you can be going to. With Zerg, I'm going to get a bunch of Mutalisks. I'm going to be going for +2 attack on the Mutalisk. I'm going to be harassing around his base every time he moves out. So, what if he goes Hellion early? Or Banshee early? Or Turax early? Well, you're always using this whole mid-game Mutalisk as a guiding stone in all the possibilities that could go on at the start. So, up to this moment in time, we've seen a lot of drones get made, a lot of powering go on because we saw the Hellion. We saw the Marine pressure. Oh, we have to deal with pressure early on. Low larva responses. Oh my gosh, we see the Hellion coming out. Ooh, we still need to be defended against this with low larva responses like Queens and Spine Crawlers. But oh my gosh, now that we've seen the Banshee coming in, I know that there can't be an attack for a little while, so I'm still going to make drones. At all these interactions, there was this, oh, I guess I can make some drones now. But if for any reason there was a moment where it's like, ugh, I don't see an expansion, we would have seen these Zerglings get made a lot earlier. Now we've been dumped into this position where it's a very, very typical mid-game push. We're going to see these Zerglings get used quite well. The massing units getting made now. And the one thing that I'm always concerned about with massing units is that they don't get put to good use. Mutalisks, they're easy to put to use. You wander those bad boys all around the map. Infestors, even if they are not attacking, are gaining mana. So if you get early Infestors, you could maybe do a little bit of damage, but for the most part, no problemo. If I don't do that much, I'll still have like 3 fully charged Infestors really early. And now we're seeing these Mutalisks pop on out, doing some good stuff. And hey, we're seeing Phoenix move out with a pretty typically timed push. Now, I'm going to ask an extra special quiz question. This that I'm about to ask, the answer is not an in-game answer. It is a, this is what I prepared answer. Let me say that one more time. What I'm about to ask has an answer. That is a pre-prepared plan that we're seeing a lot of Zergs do. That is not Slush just instinctively going, oh, maybe I should do this. Why? Let me see if I'm saying this correctly. Let me see if I want to say this right. I had the question and then I gave the explanation for what kind of answer I was expecting, and then I forgot the question. Ah, I'm so smart. Oh, here we go. Why are we not seeing anything but mutas and Zerglings right now? Why are we not seeing anything but mutas and Zerglings right now? Think. Thinkity-dinky-dinky-doo. Why are we not seeing anything but mutas and Zerglings right now? Why no banelings? Why no banelings? Why no roaches? All this sort of stuff. Let's take a look at the chat and see what sort of comments we're getting from people. There we go. There we go. Let's see. Because they are mobile. Because you only had 1 gas early on. He can't afford anything else. Okay. It's getting there. It's getting there. A lot of people are talking about like the minerals and stuff. Oh yeah, people are saying some obvious stuff. Like the Falcon says, mutas are gas heavy and lings are mineral heavy, so you can just spin both of them and you're in good shape. Let's see here. Let us divine. Trying to see, because this is it's a kind of subtle thing that I'm going for. Yeah, you know what? I like this response by Lemon Juice, who says it's very, very streamlined. And I'm going to assume it to mean exactly what I intended. That when you're up against someone who's really, really, really aggressive like Phoenix, where you've had a whole bunch of stuff battering you early on, like the Marines and the Hellions, and then you have these Banshees coming in, and then you have a Viking coming in, and there's a big attack coming in. It's very, very difficult to get a lot of momentum. It's very difficult to have time to get roaches up, have time to get these banelings up, right? And to get all these appropriate upgrades for them. So what Slush is doing is he's building the most easy, cost-efficient, simple army he can. A lot of mutas and a lot of Zerglings, right? Simple. It's 2 units, right? He's not getting like Mutaling Baneling, which we see a lot of people do. He's not going to be getting Mutaling Roach. He's not going to be getting, Ling Roach and on the way to getting more bases. I mean, it's so sparse in terms of types of units that that we're seeing Slush utilize the fact that he has fewer types of units to get an overall bigger army. Anytime you're getting more variety of units, you have an overall smaller army. So he's getting very few units, and he's going for the really fast units to allow him to be counter-aggressive, which is a really, really important thing to do. I want you to think about just the unit composition of Muta Zergling. completely ignoring the fact of what went on in this game. This is why I say it's a between games decision. It's such a lean, simple army to make, and it's so fast that we can crush most pushes. And if a push comes out, we're a little bit underprepared, we can always cut off the reinforcements from the push. And we can do all sorts of great counterattacking. It just doesn't perform that well against big armies. Right? It doesn't work so well against that. So now we're going to see Slush use this army type to just do a lot of counterattacking and a lot of space control. This is this between games decision. And then, in a sense, to bolster it, the fact that we got this really fast +1 makes this whole business even better. So Slush even has time to move out here and do a little bit of damage. We see him pulling back. And Slush actually overbuilt units. This was not your traditional Idra-esque Zerg, where you try to sneak away with as many units as possible and then barely defend at the last second. No. It was not that. And in fact, for some of you who you know, are just like, LOL, but Idra leaves games, he has one. I'll even use another example, right? Nest T very much so has this. Build a lot of drones. I'm going to get a couple of roaches because they're power units. They're low on larva in the early game. They're very larva cheap early game. I'm going to get a bunch of those. I'm going to stay alive. I'm going to go back to making drones. Not here, not Slush. This is what's really cool about this style. Overbuilding Zerglings and Mutalisks. We're not going to just kill this army. We're going to crush this army. At the same time, there is an attack going on in the back of the base. Watch how Slush deals with this. So he just pulls everything back really calmly. He just has a bunch of drones just sitting dumb, like not doing anything. And he's going to be able to just crush this as well. And I want you to think about the difference between this army that Root Slush is going for, and then an army like what Nest T would go for, which would be a lot of roaches. The lot of roaches army would not be able to really do that much. It would be great because Nest T, what's his advantage? Nest T's advantage would be that Nest T would already have this third base. It doesn't matter that our roaches can't do anything. In this circumstance, it does matter. We don't have this third base. How do we make up for it? Hell, we can be crazy aggressive with all our fancy Mutalisks. And that is so important to note. We're seeing Slush, again, overbuild his army in the mid-game because it's the kind of army that can actually continue to be aggressive and do damage. More Zerglings getting made. Have not really seen Slush build that many drones right now. Almost always you'll see a Zerg build an extra Baneling nest. Or not an extra Baneling nest, but his first Baneling nest. Go back to making drones. Take all these Zerglings and morph them into Banelings. Get some more power type units. Some more units that will let them tech. No, Slush is actually just going for a whole extra hatchery. Very mineral focused in that regard. Trying to isolate as much as he can. If we go to the unit station, we see that there's really not that many Marines out right now for Slush. Just did a real crushing counter blow to the opponent. Coming back to production. And here, suddenly, we see our traditional Zerg principles kick into play, right? Mutalisks, drones. Mutalisks, drones. Mutalisks and drones. Mutalisks and drones. Rallying to the goal, they're Mutalisks and drones. Keep on attacking. I mean, anyone can do this attack right now, right? Drones? What? Mutalisks? Oh my god, we're making more Zerglings. Oh, and now we see a Baneling nest going down. I actually genuinely think we could have snuck out a couple of more of drones in this. There we go. There's the drones going down. Mutalisks and drones. And 12 Zerglings. Mutalisks and drones. Right, this is great. Everyone loves Mutalisks and drones. Doing damage. This harassment's good. But it's interesting that we're seeing some little puzzle pieces to the build injected in there that were not normally in there. Let's go through all the pieces once again to recap for any of you who might feel like this is having a little bit of trouble tying this together. First little puzzle piece. He's bunker rushing me. Still heavy focus on trying to build drones, trying not to overreact. Okay, the bunker rush has just gone down, our second piece. It's just been stopped. Any aggression early on has been stopped. How are we going to make sure that we defend against a second wave of aggression? We build these low larva cost units, Queen and Spine Crawlers. Next little puzzle piece, our third puzzle piece in the game. We see a Hellion come in there. Oh, he must be doing some sort of tech. I'm going to be now building an evolution chamber for Spore Crawlers. And I'm going to be building more drones, right? We have to ask the question of how do we stay alive? Well, low larva, evolution chambered spore crawlers. The rest of my larva is drones. Oh, I see a Banshee's coming in. Hey, I know that tech. That's really expensive and takes a long time to build. I'm going to keep building drones in there. We've pretty much just been building drones. And now, hey, I'm starting to get myself a spire. I'm looking good. And then this is the puzzle piece I'm going to skip over really fast. This Mutaling puzzle piece. Let's skip over that. This puzzle piece, the one that we're currently on, building lots of Mutalisks and drones while we're taking a third. Normal. Normal. Look at this. Look at this. Let me hit my B button. My B-boy button. 12 drones. Expansions. Mutalisks. You know that puzzle piece. But it's the one that's in between there that I really love. Where suddenly we're getting a lot of Zerglings. Like 40 Zerglings. And we're getting like 12 to 16 Mutals. What are those 40 Zerglings going to do there? I want to come back to this moment in time because it's very easy to miss out on the subtle elements of when the attack doesn't happen, all right? Let's see when the attack does happen, right? The attack ends up happening dum-ba-dum-bum-bum at 11 minutes. And what do? We kill it! Okay, cool. All right, that's good. My singing was useful for highlighting the salient aspects of that moment in time. But what if we just had these 16 Marines sitting at home? How many units does Terran have? He has 26 Marines. Yeah, he's going for this drop. Is the drop already in there? I know there's a medevac somewhere around here. Well, I'll unpause it and maybe I can end up discovering it. Yep, there it is. There's the medevac. Well, if for some reason this little push doesn't happen, this juicy push is obvious fodder for our overproduction of Zerglings. What if it doesn't end up coming? Well, still, our Mutalisks are coming out at a great moment where we can do things like try to do damage to this depot and this refinery and this depot. And then when all the Marines come back, we take our overproduced amount of 40 Zerglings and we rush up and try to do damage here. Or we've even seen Slush take those 40 Zerglings and kill this off. And then kill this off and open up a late-game counterattack path. These Zerglings are really, really active in this hole. I'm going to be really aggressive and up in your face. I'm going to do a lot of quickness to it. So again, I love this overproduction of Zerglings at this moment in the game. Stuff that like July has been doing a lot. A lot of Zerglings have actually been doing a lot because it's really scary for a lot of Terrans to deal with. Zerglings are just too fast. Let's pop back into the game to the moment where we were when we last left off on this last little puzzle piece that we were talking about, where it's drones and dronies and muters. Yep. Oh, yep, we're making a lot of Zerglings. Oh my goodness, we're macroing and it's so easy. Keeping him on his toes. I would generally expect a couple more Zerglings to be made, but as we can see, we already have a good amount of drones. 56. Many of you are used to the more 75 number. This is a more July-esque style, where we're just making a lot of mutas and Zerglings. A lot of Mutalisks and Zerglings. Oh, my goodness, we're getting attacked by a Banshee down here. But Slush is just going to continue to attack. Now, what's interesting is that Slush is doing so much damage and is so up in the face of, I honestly think, the most aggressive Terran in the Americas. Even more so than QXC, actually. Phoenix is just very hyper, super aggressive and always prepares his builds to be as aggressive as possible. And suddenly, Phoenix is on the back foot. That's the smart thing about Slush's composition, is that Slush went for a very counter-aggressive way to play. In all those aggressive moments in the early game, he was in great shape, and now he's not only gotten to the moment that everyone kind of wants to get to, but he's gotten there in a way that is shutting down Phoenix, of all people. Now notice that all Slush did all game was defend, 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 attack here, attack here, attack here with Mutalisks, and his defense was actually so strong that overrunning this is ridiculously easy. And Phoenix isn't a bad macro player. It's all the strength of Slush's builds. Or Slush's, that little powering that happened in the early game, and then all them Zerglings that came out later on. Let's look at another game that's going to be totally kick-ass, right? Another game we're going to see something completely different out of our Terran buddy Phoenix. Still going to be really aggressive. We're going to see a crazy defense by Slush, but it's going to sort of pour into the same thing. Because again, it's so important that we don't build our massing units too early, because we don't want to get into a position where we just don't have the economy. In that last game, Slush made all those power units, or excuse me, all those massing units, the Zerglings, to go with his powering units, the Mutalisks. Oh, how great that was to see. But don't forget all the drones that were made beforehand, and the way that Slush got there. Evo Chambers, Spore Crawlers, Spine Crawlers, Queens. No units other than that. So we're going to come back and see one of the most classic Terran openings, the canonical Terran opening, the double Hellion build, where you get a factory with a reactor as fast as possible. Except, normally, you see a barracks, and then a refinery, and then a factory. Watch what Phoenix does. He does it even faster. He's going to get his refinery first. Dum 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 dum. Alright, here it comes. Here comes the barracks on 12. Boom, there it goes down. For any of you who didn't know, if you go refinery and then barracks, you'll have 100 gas right when the barracks finishes. Slush gonna go for that hatch yet again. Hatch on 15. Is building that 15th drone to be able to get himself out. A pool on 15. And look at this. Waka waka waka. See, we have 100 gas. Phoenix actually went for an orbital command. I think that's a huge mistake. You should actually just build the factory a little earlier. I mean, why the hell are you going gas refinery? Or excuse me, going refinery first to, like, not get the fastest factory possible? So I would definitely call that a little misstep there. But either way, we can still get our reactor up in very, very fast time. So we're going to see Phoenix immediately get himself that reactor. Immediately. Here comes the 2 queens from Slush. The delayed gas. Everything's great. Hey, how many Zerglings are we making? Dos Zerglingos. And there now is the Spine Crawler going down. Cool, fantastic. No gas yet. Oh, how wonderful. And yeah, look, here's the 2 Hellions going down. In a typical double Hellion build, you'll have had enough. You'll build a command center right before you begin that double Hellion production. Phoenix doesn't even have the money to do that because he's gotten these Hellions up so freaking fast. See what I mean by Phoenix is like the most aggressive player ever? He doesn't just go for an early bunker rush. He goes 9 depot 10 racks. He doesn't just go for Hellion pressure. He gets that refinery up first so we can begin building the Hellions ultra early on. So in the meantime, we're seeing 2 gas geysers get thrown down a little late by Slush. Ordinarily, he'd want to be spamming himself that speed. There we go. It's going down. Queen popping up. Yep, joining together with Creep. This is a pretty typical base for little Zergy. Yep, I want to go to the Slush cam. Slush has not actually seen this double reactor play. He has not seen... Well, actually, has he seen? We see... Oh, it looks like... Yep, you got a little bit of knowledge. One of these Hellions appears to have killed off. Yep, there it is. So he at the very least knows that there's some Zerglings coming. So let's see how Slush is going to deal with it. Let's go back to production and get ready for this push. There's the evolution chamber going down. Seems fairly reasonable. We saw a Hellion. So why not get our evolution chamber to get spore colonies to deal with the possible tech that could be coming up. Spreading creep. Uh-oh. We now see Hellions. Watch Slush respond. This is very, very smart. Really good thinking, right? Spreading these out. We see 4 Zerglings going down. And then look at this! Look at this! 1 Evo Chamber. 2 Evo Chamber. Blocking them in! Is that good or what? Is that good or what? Alright, you see that? Do you see that? Do you see it? But yeah, you know what? Still just bringing his queens. Using his queens. Using the fact that he's on creep. 4 Zerglings get made in the midst of all this. Any more Zerglings getting made? Well, it looks like we're just going to cancel this one. Nope, look, drones getting made. Getting drones. Getting drones. Yep, there it goes down. an extremely impressive defense. We're a little bit behind our buddy in workers, but there we are, catching right back on up again. And even if we go to the every cam, we can see that Terran has not really gotten his expansion up. Does not really have that many units. He has 3 Marines and a Hellion. And that's it. He can't really put any pressure on us. So there's this fundamental rule that I always talk about that we're actually seeing in action here. The more aggressive your opponent is, the more effed up he is in every single other way in the game, right? If he's getting really fast Hellions, then his regular follow-up attack is going to be weak. If he's getting kind of normal timed Hellions, he's going to have a really scary mid-game push with tanks and Marines. But if it's super fast, not going to be a really scary push with tanks and Marines. If he's getting the fastest Banshee you've ever seen, he probably is going to have a stupidly delayed expansion. There's all these other trade-offs that are going on in terms of that economy. So it's important to kind of like see that a lot just for the mental game. Because there's this abstract concept that is very often messed up with players of all skill levels. In fact, it might even be most problematic up at the Grandmaster and High Master level. When you are playing a game where you have incomplete information, like in StarCraft 2, you can't see inside his base. What you do is you create an image in your head of where you think he is. So we see these Hellions, so there's this image in our head of about what's going on in home base. Or if he goes for like, if he brings 10 SCVs and all his Marines early on and you kill it, you have an image of like a crippled economy back home where there's like nothing really mining, right? And what you end up doing over many, many, many games of playing and study is that you adjust that image to be closer and closer to what is really going on. So it is very, very important that you do the following 2 things. Make sure that your image that you have for him in the game is actually accurate. Do checks in-game to think, or to see if your image is accurate. Classic example that I've had happen to me in so many tournament games that I've ended up as the winner. He does a huge attack. It's so scary, and I barely hold it off. You know what my brain tells me? My brain's like, God, oh God, all Protosses would have a 3rd base by then. Oh, that was so hard to hold off. Oh, he's going to have a 3rd base. And then I go check, and he doesn't have any extra bases. He's on 2, and he's almost mined out. And I realize I just held off the final attack. Oh, and I get happy, right? It's important to run that check. It's also important, the second thing, is to run that check in between games. Especially when Hellions come really fast. A lot of times what'll happen is you'll say, oh, Phoenix is so good that he's just doing a regular build so well that the Hellions are arriving way, way, way too early, right? When in reality, Phoenix is doing a really hyper-aggressive build. This actually happens to me all the time, where I'll see a gigantic army and just think, well, he's a good player, I guess that's what he does. And then when I go re-examine it, I'm like, oh, he's all in. Oh my God, he's actually all in. No wonder the army's so big. There was no follow-up plan to that. Always make sure with this image that you have of what your opponent is doing that you're running checks on it. A lot of checks, right? Lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of checks. So, yep, trying to get on in. What will Slush do? He's actually not even going to move his frickin' workers. Oh! You gotta admit that was good. You gotta admit that was good. Queens are so fat! Clogging up space. So, yep, there's the melee attack going down. There's the hatchery tech going down. So, again, we've seen Slush get really messed with early on. He's still going to build a Spore Crawler. Still going to build a Spore Crawler back here. Why is that? Well, double Hellion into Banshee. Very common build. Very common. We saw our Hellions. Seems reasonable that he could be teching. Again, not a wildly complex read, but just sort of an intuitive logic read. And as we're going to poke up here, we're going to end up seeing, I want you to watch the production with me while he spots stuff. Oh! A good amount of Marines. Doink! Nope, no combat shield. I don't actually know if you can check stim on an opponent. Oh my god, what are you doing in there? Is there a guy hiding in the trees? Hey, what's up, mister? Alright, cool. Still many drones. Rearranging the spine crawler. There's this remarkable solidity to what Slush is doing. See how we saw drones? Well, we not only killed off some tech, but also, you know what we saw? We did see an expand go down. I think it's reasonable to assume he's not just one base all-inning and sort of hiding that there. We're still going to see some Zerglings begin to get made yet again. Speeding things up. Yeah, look at this. This is this moment in time we're going to see a whole lot of Zerglings just pop on out. Oh, nifty. In the first game, going for really, really fast Banshees. We don't have any Banshees here, but in the first game, going for those really fast Banshees, well, you know what? That kind of messed Terran up in that early game, so he can't really do any other aggression to us. The double Hellion attack. Lost a lot of Hellions. He can't really do any other aggression, so now we got to make a whole bunch of drones, and again, we're doing this Zergling build, and we're noticing, hey, it's at the 10-minute mark again. Isn't that about when we were worried about stuff in that last game? It was, as a matter of fact. We're really starting to see, hey, he's building this very aggressive composition. And we're seeing him, in a state of emergency, what does he do? He builds a low on larva response. He's building these spine crawlers out here. Slush inadvertently loses a bunch of things. No Baneling Nest. No roaches. Just still Zerglings and Mutalisks. And there we're seeing the 10 Mutalisks pop right on out. Total calm. Total calm coming out of Slush, just pulling stuff back very gradually. And this was actually, I think, one of the more brilliant micro moments. I want to point this out to you because it's very easy in a moment like this, in the face of aggression, to have this, I gotta make sure I stop this now. That's actually so key. It's not that big a deal to kill it right now. You can let it do some damage. Because if he's doing a really big attack, as long as you can kill all of it, it's okay if it did a good amount of damage to you. You don't want it to do a ridiculous amount of damage, but too often people have this mindset of, it has to do no damage. Did you see the way those Hellions worked at the start? They ripped apart the drones. Really walled himself in. You can actually do this on a lot of maps. Just walled himself in. Super, ultra, mega calm. And then he lost a couple of drones out there. He didn't get to vomit larva that whole time. That's fine. And here's a really subtle thing. So here he's going to move up to maybe do damage to these Marines. But the instant they pull back, look at how instantaneously Slush retreats. Very calm. He lost one Zergling in that. Lost two Zerglings in that. Continuing to transfuse. Very careful. And then moves down when the Marines have the second stim. Because when Marines have that second stim, this tank-friendly fire is really, really brutal against them. So we're seeing it just one-shot those Mariners. And hey, yeah, you know what? It did a good amount of damage. Now we're starting to see why Slush overproduces those Zerglings early on. Because it's essential as a component for holding stuff off. What's another great thing about Mutalisk Zergling really fast? What was I saying about those reinforcements? Huh? What was I saying? It's so easy to just cut them off. What if you weren't expecting the attack? What did I say? You can do this sort of counterattack. Look at him move out. Oh! Not a lot of units, just 3. But here they end up planting themselves in a very nice position. Here come a few extra Marines. Nom 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 nom. Yum, 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 yum. Yeah, yeah. And I'm not going to do it again. So we do see, again, here's all the micro action going on. It's a great little defense force. And we're seeing that it can hold off a lot. And then after it gets done holding off a lot, it can immediately spring forward into action. And I particularly like this way of staying alive by Slush because I think it's very powerful at all levels of play. I think it's very powerful to, you know, see all this tech-based aggression, be defending it with just queens and spine crawlers, to be droning a lot, to be getting this Zergling upgrade, and then just get a lot of Zerglings and Mutalisks. Lots and lots and lots and lots and lots and lots. And then expand, and then go back to Mutas and drones. Again, in these games, we've discovered a great time to build a mass unit, to build these Zerglings. A very difficult to sense kind of unit of where to start building it. In fact, the hardest skill as Zerg. Upon defending this attack, we see total aggression mode coming out of Slush. Really, really, really potent. And we're just going to see a micro round a good bit. Now, I will say I wanted to do another game, but I'm not going to because we've been doing it for an hour. So we're going to go ahead and take questions. Boink. So that was a whoopsie daisies. Clear! Start question capture from Markio's question grabber. Grab those questions. Yay! Ask away, gentle people. So, yes. Yes, indeed. What was this whole daily about? What was the whole daily about? Oh yeah, this notion of the Zerg massing unit and dealing with aggression. That it's very, very hard to know when is the best time to begin making these macro-style units. And we learned, or these mass-style units, and we learned a couple of key lessons from Slush. The first was that with all these early defenses that Slush was doing, they were all low larva defenses. A lot of queens, a lot of spine crawlers, a lot of building placement solutions, walling himself in crazy ways. And we got to find out a really good time to build ourselves some massing units. Oh, hey, sweet. To do all that sort of early defense. But we also noted that these mass units were always going to be useful for both offense and defense. Never get into the trap of making bunches of mass units just for defense. Because what if he doesn't attack? That is the classic problem that many Zergs will end up having. The Zerg who builds roaches and roaches and roaches and roaches and hits 200 and 200 food. And no one's attacked yet. Oh crap, these roaches were unable to do anything. What we saw Slush do is he linked these units, the masses of Zerglings, with the Mutalisks, and those together made it work really well. You could do something like make a lot of roaches for defense and then get drop and be very, very good with them. This is actually something that we see Maro do very well. He gets a lot of Zerglings, and then he gets Banelings, and then he starts doing drops all over the place like crazy. It's brilliant. It works so well. Just Ling Baneling is kind of a little bit weak, so if you start making those massing units, have some way to be able to be aggressive with them, link them together with something, and if you're still failing with that, always feel free to just go back to powering units and drones and do those massing units later on. So Frag Raptor says, Danon, what is your opinion of the mutilating aggressive style versus turtley toss? I actually think it's very, very effective. Because even on 2 bases, there's a lot of opportunities to do some damage. But the big thing to note is if you're playing against a super mega ultra stinky turtle Protoss, you're going to have the whole map and win. And if he waits on 2 bases, and then he moves out earlier on, you just counterattack and counterattack and counterattack and counterattack and counterattack, and you can do a lot of damage. And if you're looking for a reference game, watch Losira vs. MC Game 2 from MLG. So good. So 2-Bit says, Dear Day9, if you're going Hydralisk and Roach, does this massing still apply? So, yeah, I actually... the Hydralisk is a weird unit because it, like, doesn't... I mean, I would have to put it into, like, a sort of massing unit role. Because with Mutalisk, the reason I would call it a power unit is that you get a bunch of Mutalisks and then you mess with them and do all sorts of stuff. And it's such a good defensive unit as well that it lets you... it opens up opportunities for you without spending very much larva. It's a very powerful unit for the amount of larva it costs. But Hydralisks, you kind of have to have a lot of before they can actually do much. So I would kind of put them into the massing unit category. They kind of have to attack in this straight up, in the middle of the map fashion. But we've seen players like Moon get really fast drop tech with the Hydralisks and put pressure on opponents in that fashion. And that's very, very, very effective. It's a way of turning these slow, or actually I should say these non-useful units, these units that are good in straight up slugfest but not good in any other way, of making them good in other ways. Again, relating it back to the Slush series. Zerglings are okay, sort of, as, you know, just making a lot of them. But when we combine them with the Mutalisks, we can do big counterattacks. We can attack at the back with the Mutas and hit the front with the Zerglings. A lot of good stuff. Let's see here. So, yeah, Thunderbear, again, asking. Thunderbear321 says, if nothing happens when he builds all those units for aggression, does he fall behind in any way? Depends on what you mean when you say, if nothing happens. Because Mutalisks are just such strong units that they can kind of almost always do damage. I mean, theoretically, if your opponent has perfect defense, then that's good. But that's what makes it an interesting and good fight for Zerg, is that he's able to put Terran in all these really, really, really tough situations. If you do make a bunch of Zerglings and Mutalisks and don't do damage with them, absolutely you will fall behind. But I love how Slush has all these double purposes for everything. A double purpose for the Evo Chamber, building Spore Crawlers for defense, but also getting that +1. Double purpose for making so many Zerglings. It will help us defend against attacks with our Mutalisk Zergling, and then also we can begin to do aggression with it. Double purpose. Double purpose. We're going to do one more response. One more question. One more question. Yep, from Grisk13, who says, Day 9, how can Zerg measure effective macro? Other races can use constant production, but how should we? I'm going to tell you something that is so important that you know. If you are not vomiting larvae really regularly, you will, weirdly enough, feel like you have more options early game than you actually do. It's this curve, this kind of... Let me do it from your point of view. Is this... Yeah, so here's the origin. So, all right, this is me moving to the right. All right, good. So what happens is that let's say you have really crisp timing the way you're supposed to. You know, you get some money and, ooh, I got to spend it on drones. You get some money and, ooh, I got to spend it on drones. You get some money, ooh, I got to spend it on drones. And then suddenly, oh, we end up with a lot of money. And we're like, options, I can do everything. But let's say your macro's not so good. You go, ooh, I have money. Don't have any larvae. Maybe I'll build a Roach Warren. Huh. Okay, now my larva finished. Okay, good. Let's start to come back up again. Ooh, I'm going to get some extra upgrades. And then what happens is then there comes a point where you're flat. Where all of a sudden you're like, I don't have any options at all. There was some wiggle room at the start, but then there was everything dropped off. If you are not feeling like you have that many options, you're feeling especially cramped, really try to work on vomiting that larva accurately every time. As a matter of fact, when I took my multiple month hiatus when I was finishing up my master's degree, I came back and I was like, yeah, I like Zerg, I'm going to try them. And I was trying to do some funkiness and I was feeling alright. And then later I was kind of like, I wasn't feeling that good. And actually for like 4 or 5 days, all I did was work on my macro injects. I didn't really care what else I was doing. I was just only looking at my hatches. And then I popped out and I was like, pretty damn good with Zerg. I was like, wow, I'm getting so much stuff. Holy crap, you know? Just by doing that, I was able to look at my play and compare it to those tip-top pros and say, hey, I'm actually doing about the same that he's doing just by building a lot of larvae early on and making sure I frickin' spend it. So that is, I would say, an excellent way to measure if your macro is working out well. I went way long. I'm sorry. I'm going to wrap up. I'm done. Go watch DreamHack. I'm leaving on Monday. Goodbye. I love you. I love you.